Welcome, everyone. So glad you are here with us. We're just taking a moment to allow our community to get settled into this virtual learning space. We know that we have folks that are joining us on LinkedIn Live, as part of our Zoom community, and we are grateful. We are so excited about today's conversation. Thank you for spending this hour with us. We know that you could be doing so many other things during this hour. The fact that you, as part of our community, you see this as a time that is worthy of your presence, it means a lot to us. And so we certainly want to deliver a great and powerful and enriching show for you today. And that's precisely what we plan to do. I'm going to invite you to go to the chat and let us know where you are joining the conversation from. It is always a treat for us week after week when we do our Intentional Conversations podcast to see the many different geographies that are represented, including not only within the US, but even outside of the country. And if you're here just listening in, maybe you're multitasking, we're glad you're here nonetheless. I want to invite you to go to the chat, as I mentioned before, and let us know where you're joining the conversation from. If you feel inclined for members of this community to connect with you outside of this hour, then please share your LinkedIn information. And my team will share my LinkedIn information. I'm going to ask our guest co-hosts to also share their LinkedIn information. And shout out to the NWC team that works tirelessly every single week and have done so for the past 5 years to bring this virtual experience to the broader community so that we can learn with and from each other, deepen our knowledge, our understanding around all things diversity, equity, and inclusion, belonging, accessibility, all the things, right? And how it intersects with leadership and business. We are so glad you're here. I am Dr. Nika White, and my pronouns are she, her, and I am the founder and lead principal consultant for NWC. And once again, you have joined Intentional Conversations, our special reunion episode as we celebrate 5 years. Welcome. Let the conversations begin, and that is precisely what we are about to do. Once again, this is Intentional Conversations, our 5th year of celebrating Intentional Conversations podcast. And by the way, for those of you who aren't aware, we do extract the audio and we make it available in podcast capacity for those who like to get their content on the go and be a podcast. But this is a reunion episode. It's one of the things we wanted to do each quarter of our 5th year anniversary, a great milestone to celebrate, just to bring back some guests that have been quite impressionable to our community. And today is a great opportunity to actually bring together a group that I care deeply about. They are friends, they're individuals that are doing remarkable things in their own right. And take a moment just to give a 1 to 2 liner of some of their credentials and their backgrounds, because I want to make sure we're maximizing our time together today to really hear from each of them. They will share more about all the different ways and experiences that has shaped how they show up to the world. But let me just give you just a quick overview, and then I will turn it over to our guests to be able to greet you in their own way. We have Tara J. Frank, who is an equity and inclusion and leadership strategist who has advised and educated thousands of Fortune 500 executives across multiple industries and larger member organizations. We also have today Deepa Purushothaman, and she is a fierce advocate for leaders looking to rise on their own terms and a vital advisor to executives and leaders grappling with questions of advancement and retention. We also have Minda Harts, who is a celebrated author and influential speaker, best known for her bestsellers, The Memo, Right Within, You Are More Than Magic, and a new book that I'm sure she's going to tell us about today. And I cannot wait for its release and for you all to hear more about that. And then we also have Ritu, Bhasin. She is an award-winning speaker, consultant, and internationally recognized expert in inclusion leadership, belonging, and empowerment. She is also the best-selling author of We've Got This and The Authenticity Principle. So at this time, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can bring my friends into the mix, and so that we can see their lovely faces and just be in community. I want to just first let them all know and let this community know how grateful I am that we were able to align align our calendars because I know firsthand how busy this group is. I know that we have spent a lot of time trying to align our calendars in the past, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. So I am just grateful that you each are here. And I want to take a moment to just express that level of appreciation. So part of our podcast community, find those emojis, find those words of affirmation. Let our community know how valued you are to be here in the presence of these wonderful women who are doing incredible things. I need you to show them appreciation because that is a favor from me. Please do that because they are just remarkable. And I'm so grateful to them. So what I want to do is let's go one by one. I want to give you all a chance to greet this audience in your own way. And we have a tradition here at NWC, and that is to tell us something that we would not know from reading your bio or going to your LinkedIn profile. But I'm going to switch that up today because I can do that. I'm the host, right? And I can do that because it's a special occasion. We don't have to follow the rules of the past. And so what I want you to do is instead of sharing something that we would not know, maybe, I want you to talk about maybe a significant update since the last time that we've been connected, because each of you have been on the Intentional Conversations podcast as a guest co-host. And let's see, I think I want to start with Tara Jaye. And by the way, I love saying your name. I've told you that before. I never say just Tara. It's always got to be Tara Jaye because it's just like that. So Tara, how are you, my friend? Welcome.
Thank you so much. Here's what I'd like to say about that. Tarjay sounds too much like Tarjay, which sounds like Target. So I would implore you to just call me Tara for the moment.
We're just writing it, huh?
But I also just want to say congratulations. I'm pretty sure we're here to celebrate 5 years of you doing your thing and having this amazing VodCast. And so, I'm feeling celebratory on that note, and wanted to certainly send you some love in that direction and to the community that has traveled with you for these past 5 years.
Yeah. Do y'all remember the episode of The Cosby Show when Rudy was little and she was turning 5, but she was the baby and she didn't want to be the baby. And so she was just like really down and out. And then Claire Huxtable, in her very nurturing way, was like, 5 is great. And she got her to finally say, yay, 5. Y'all remember that? It's Bill this year. Yay, 5.
Yay, 5. Yay, 5. So I'll quickly share an update for me, since I know that's part of what we're supposed to share with everybody. I am almost done. When I say almost, I mean 90%, maybe 95, if I'm feeling generous. Almost done with my next book. And it has been a journey, let me say, as some of you here on the call already know. What started as a business book, 40,000 words later, it got sidelined because God was trying to bring something very different through me. And so I'm almost done with that thing that was being born. And I'm excited about that. And I've been spending a ton of time and energy on it, as I know you know.
Yes,
that's
you
my
have.
update.
And I cannot be more excited for you. And thank you for kind of taking me on this journey with you. I feel really privileged to been walking alongside you as you've been going through this really important exercise. And I'm so glad that you're going to have this book out into the world your way.
Yeah.
And I know what it took to get there. So, okay, Minda, I want to toss it to you next. You're just hot off the press or the stage from another event, coming in hot to this broadcast. So grateful for you. How are you?
Honored to be here. No other place I'd rather run to my room back to be. But congratulations. I got to put some respect on it. Dr. White, for 5 years of this. It's not easy to be consistent. And so thank you for being a soft place for people to land and know that they can come weekly and find community. And so thank you for your labor of love, because it's a labor of love to continue to put content out there for people to consume each and every. I fall short all the time, so I just tip my hat to you. So thank you and congratulations. Since the last time that I was on with you, let's see, probably two most significant things is my first book, The Memo, which we had a book club on, was optioned. We did some short film, and we did a few private screenings around the country. And so I hope in the next month that I'll be able to share where that landed and where you might be able to see it on a streaming platform near you. And so yes, so really dipping my toe into film and TV more so, and then gearing up for my fourth book. This is what it looks like. It's called Talk to Me Nice, The 7 Trust Languages for a Better Workplace. And so that comes out in July. And so as many of us who are authors know, that is what I'm eating for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks right now. So that's what's going on.
Not the snacks too. Yes. Okay. Congratulations to you, Minda. It's been great to watch the trajectory of your success and to just witness the ability to take something that was already so impactful and turn it into film, The Memo. I mean, I am so proud of you, and I'm grateful that you have been steadfast at what your purpose and your charge is, because your voice is needed, your authority is needed, and all the things. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful to you. Deepa, how are you, friend?
Good. It's good to see everybody and to hear all the updates. And like the others, I want to congratulate you because 5 years is no joke and it takes a lot of work and it's hard to be consistent. And I can't actually point at that many podcasts or conversations that have had that longevity. So I really do want to take a minute and acknowledge
Thank
what
you.
a big,
Thank you.
what a big celebration or moment that is. And similar to, I think, some of the conversations or some of the shares so far, I feel like a lot has happened. And at the same time, nothing has happened since I talked to you last. I mean, I launched a company. I had a book proposal. I had, a couple of other things in the works. And it's just, to be honest with you, it's been a challenge. A lot of what I focus on is advancing women, and there's been a lot of retreat. And so I was just sharing before the call started, I have my March is booked. I mean, all of a sudden the last week people have shown up, but it's been a process. So I feel like I would say last 9 months have really been about grace and launching things, and then, bobbing and weaving to kind of meet the moment and figure out how I re-envision work that absolutely needs to get done, but it feels really hard, as I know we're going to talk about. So yeah, I think I'm in a moment of just trying to be flexible and remind myself the work is important and it will come out in the ways that it's supposed to come out when it's time. So.
Yes, no, we're going to get there, because we certainly are going to laugh and enjoy this celebratory moment, but we are going to talk about the hard things too, because I think it's important. I think it's really important. Okay, now I'm going to go to you, Ritu. How are you, friend? You're fabulous, because you just got back on an amazing trip. But what's going on with you? Share with us.
So first of all, I echo all of what my sisters have shared, and congratulating you for 5 years. And
Thank
also,
you.
it's such a blessing to see you all on a screen, and I just love you all so much. And so, as everyone can tell tuning in, we're colleagues professionally, but we're all actually real friends. Like, we're actual real friends. So love you all. The last time, so when I was last on your podcast, I had just launched my then new book, We've Got This. And I was fingers crossed, hoping that people would buy it and it would do well and people would read it and it would create shift. And I'm so grateful for all the hard work that went into it, like the blood, sweat, and tears, like Minda and Tara, like where you are with your books. Like but writing a book is no easy feat. So I'm really grateful for how it all unfolded. Like, my book is about belonging. And in my view, never have we needed to focus more on creating a society and a workplace cultures that are rooted in belonging. But if you were to say to me, Ritu, professionally, what has happened for you that's been the biggest since I have last been on your podcast, I would say it's impacted by my personal life. And so, as many of you know, right around now, a year ago, my mother passed away. She transitioned, and it was a life-altering moment for me. And it has literally changed my world, including my relationship with work and with rest in particular. And I am navigating a new journey and a new relationship, both with work and with rest. And I am exploring and thinking a lot about reflecting on digging deep, especially given the chaos that we find ourselves in as leadership experts, as inclusion experts, and more. Where do I want to have the biggest impact? How can I do this at a time where leadership needs to look different than more so than it ever has, and do it in a way that honors me, rest as resistance? Like, how can I do this in a way that honors me? And for me, that is the biggest thing that I'm exploring. And I'm excited because the next time I speak to you, I hope I have more concrete answers and thoughts on that. But I'm in the exploration mode right now, which is both beautiful and really hard and uncomfortable.
Sure. Yeah, we've talked many times about that, Ritu, and I am glad that you are finding this greater balance, because we are seeing that no matter how hard as women of color we may work and we may show up, at our best, still sometimes there are systemic issues that prevent us from being able to have full opportunity for success. And so I think that making that commitment to ourselves to create that level of balance, whatever that looks like for each of us, is really important. So I want to jump in, and we're not going to spend a whole lot of time here because I think there's so much that we could speak to give value to this community that have joined us. And by the way, I want you all to use the chat if you're live on LinkedIn and that's how you're catching the show. I want you to use the comment section. My team is watching that. We're bringing it over so it can be connected as one big group. But we want to hear your sentiments, your thoughts, and your questions. And closed caption is also available for those that may need it. But I want us to talk about what we are navigating right now, particularly as individuals who care deeply about those who are in the margins, right? And we know that so much is being threatened, and it's becoming really hard to navigate for many of us, and community has become really important. And so I just want to give each of you a chance to just share with us, how are you navigating? What are some strategies and some ways in which you have found it best to really just be on this, what I'm referring to as kind of a roller coaster of uncertainty for who knows how long. So let's see, who wants to kick us off? Anyone in particular? I'm just going to pick a Hollywood square then. I know that all of you have something to say because we've been in many conversations before. Okay, Minda, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I wish that I could say that I have some 1, 2, 3, click your heels, twirl around, and like everything gets better from here. But I think what I've had to do for me is understand that I can't crash out on every single thing that comes across my timeline or that I read. This work is deeply personal for all of us because it's not just, oh, that's nice to have inside the workplace. We do this work each and every day. So it impacts us as individuals, or as me as an individual, but it also impacts my bottom line. And you want to be able to show up for other people during this time period, but also show up for yourself, right? For example, February is a very busy month for me typically because of Black History Month. I tend to give you all my business real fast. I tend to make a good portion of my money in February and March and for the year. And this year, it looks different, right? I barely worked in February. I don't know what March looks like. And yet I'm still cautiously optimistic because I know that the work that we do is even more important for the moment right now, right? And so I just want to encourage everybody to feel the feelings, right? And pick 2 or 3 things that are very important to you in your work, and how can you continue to talk about those things, but from a lens where it's more inclusive, right? And so I think that you have to decide where you put your fork in the road and where you stand and what's going to make most sense for you, and what one of my sisters decides to do may be good for their business, right? What I might decide to do may be good for my business. And I think that we just have to really take time with our business and say what makes sense for us, right? And so for me, I started to see the writing on the wall a couple of years ago, and it was the reason why I decided to expand my repertoire and add trust, because I knew that when all of the stuff starts to hit the fan, what we really need to be talking about is this communication crisis, which is lack of trust, right? So I'm really rooting myself in what part of this equation can I control, right? I'm going to show up for my community in the best ways that I can, but I'm also going to take care of me and make sure that, I'm okay too. And I think that it's okay for all of us to check in on ourselves and center ourselves, because this is a marathon, not a sprint, right? And I also I had to kind of talk to myself nice, because I was starting to question, does my work matter? And is it important? And, am I going to have to go back and get a 9-to-5 job? Not that anything's wrong with that, right? But I had to be honest about, I'm still fairly young. So, what does my life look like? Right?
Yes.
But I had to ask myself those questions, and I had to also answer them for me. And so I'm putting my stake in the ground that I'm still an advocate in the workplace. I'm still going to talk my stuff. I'm still going to encourage people to, in 2015, I wanted to make the workplace work for everybody. In 2025, I still want to make the workplace work for everybody. So I'm still going to continue to do that. The strategy might change, but the game is still the same. And so I just want to encourage everybody to know that you're good enough. You deserve this time and moment, but take that time. And lastly, root yourself. This is what's helping me root myself into 2 to 3 things that I care deeply about with this work, and focus my energy and my time on those things inside and outside the workplace, right? Because, and then that's really helps me with my mental health, because I can't have octopus hands and do everything, but can I go to a town hall meeting? Can I write a letter, right? Those are the sorts of things that I'm willing to do. And we've been here before. And so but now we are more sophisticated with our tactics and tools. And so I'm very encouraged about what is ahead of us. Our best days are still to come.
Yeah, so well stated. So much truth and just affirming words, and the clip that you just shared. I so align and resonate with much of that. Let's go to you, Deepa.
Yeah, I mean, I resonate with so much of that as well. I think that my process is kind of, ebbed and flowed, similar to to I feel like I'm, bouncing around and trying to figure out what works, similar to Minda in the business. If I backtrack a little bit, I started to see changes probably last, May, June, like things had really started to, change after the Supreme Court announcements. And after, I started to see things there. So for me, it's been a process of thinking about, how does the business pivot? What do I want to do next? And so and similar to Ritu, I was really deep in my book launch, felt like it took on a life of its own. I had so much speaking and I felt exhausted. I had left corporate, sold the book, and then started speaking nonstop. And so I found myself really burnt out in a very different, deep way, in a way that I wasn't expecting. So I felt like I took the last half of last year to really think about, what is a priority to me? What do I want my life to look like?
Yeah.
What choices do I want to make? And what do I want to stop doing because I have put it in place thinking I need to do it to launch, my next thing and to make everything make sense. And so I did a little bit of that soul searching, but when the election happened and, I live in Los Angeles with Minda, we were really close to the fires and we were almost evacuated 3 different times. And so most of my January was really looking at, if we lose everything, if we have to pack up, it really changes, I think, how you look at life and what's important and what's a priority. And so I've really been sitting in those deep questions, those big questions. And I've been going back and forth. There are days where I spent a few weekends ago, I spent 3 days reading Project 2025, 2050 from front to end. I wanted to read it. I wanted to see it. I didn't want the interpretations anymore. I have gone deep on other things. So I find myself hosting community in a lot of places. So for companies and, organizations, and for small groups, a lot of sort of, telling people to be optimistic, to really look forward, to find the joy where they can. And like Minda saying, do the small things, because it does feel overwhelming, but that is part of the tactic, is to overwhelm us. So to find things you can do in the day-to-day. And so I've been kind of doing that, but also trying to get smarter and understand how I can engage in the conversation. After spending 20 years in corporate, a lot of how I've always talked about this work is very research-based, is very data-based, is trying to talk to people who might not share my political views. And so trying to really understand, where is the conversation? Where is the disconnect? How do we have these conversations in spaces where we thought they were welcome, but now they might not be, and we really need to change how we're, looking at it. So I find myself really trying to get wiser, really be patient, have some grace and trying to understand, but also really pausing when I need to, because I think that this is a long road in front of us. I do think we'll make it through. I think in a lot of
Yeah,
ways,
we will.
what's going to make us through, help us get through this is community. And so a lot of my focus is reminding people to find their spaces, find their conversations, to find resources, and to be kind to people where you can be. Because I think the level of stress I'm seeing, especially amongst the women leaders who come to me, is at an all-time high. And I just think we need to respect and understand that fear that everyone is feeling.
100%. I've heard someone use language like we need to really lean into strategic patience right now, because even if we're trying to solve, there's so much uncertainty and so much evolving that's happening at a fast pace. It's hard to really put a stake in the ground around anything in particular. So we have to just think about, what can we do? What can't we do? What won't we do? And make sure that we're staying aligned with our values. And so thank you so much, Deepa. Ritu, I want to let you go next, my friend.
So much of what Minda and Deepa have already shared deeply, deeply resonates with me. I think that what I'm finding is, well, two things are happening. Professionally, all of what Deepa and Minda have shared, I'm experiencing as well. I find that I'm holding space for clients.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the people that I interact with are C-suite leaders, are the heads of talent management or DEI, and they don't feel psychologically safe to share what they're experiencing, and frankly need guidance on how to navigate this difficult moment. And so I feel like, in addition to providing practical suggestions on, here's what I recommend in the face of this, or here's how you can massage and tweak this language or this programming or frame this, pivot, etc., to protect the hard work that we want to achieve, it's also about holding emotional and spiritual space for people who feel deeply afraid, unseen, vulnerable, psychologically unsafe in their workplaces. And so that to me is so critical. And it connects back to, Deepa, your point on connection and being in community. Like, if there has ever been a moment for us needing to be in community, needing to feel witnessed, it's this moment, and we need each other. It's critical. It's so fundamental. And then connected to that, one of the things that I'm going back to repeatedly, and I'm smiling only because Nika, you and I have talked about this, and Tara, you and I have talked about this, and the three of us have talked about this, is about anchoring to moments of joy. And I think in darkness, in moments of darkness, the thing that we need the most is light. And we're not going to be basking in omnipresent sunshine and light in this difficult time. We'll have moments of joy and light. And whatever those moments of joy and light are, those are the moments we gravitate to. And so if you are, like, for example, I told a client earlier today, find your moments of joy. Like I said, for example, as crappy as this moment is, I'm having a good hair day. And so like all day I've been like, hey, I've been having, every time I've been on Zoom, first of all, I hate looking at myself on Zoom, but here I'm like, hey, good hair day, good hair. I will take my good hair day. If that is your win for today, that is your win, take your wins. Or like I was in India celebrating with family, and my cup was filled, and I'm like, absorb all this joy, because you're going to go back to your real life and there's going to be all that dark stuff swirling around you, and it's going to be really challenging. So we must anchor to joy. In fact, I'm going to be putting up a post on this coming up. To me, joy is resistance. Like rest is resistance, but joy is resistance as well. And so I think that's critical.
Yeah, you each have shared such great nuggets, and I'm right there with you. I'm holding on to all of the moments of joy, because I know that there are going to be moments of the opposite that's going to come, and I want to be able to self-soothe by reminding myself that, joy is going to come right in the morning. It will come in the morning. Okay. last but certainly not least, Tara Jaye. Well, let me just say Tara for today, because I did hear your comment at the beginning. You went straight in and said, it sounds like Tara Jaye, Target, and we don't want to go
I was
there.
just
So
teasing. I'm just teasing.
I know.
Um,
But yeah, I would love for you to share.
yeah, I mean, when I started my firm a decade ago, and it was in 2015 that I kind of launched what is now the Waymakers Change Group. I started it as a leadership and culture firm. I had just come off, as some of you know, kind of a 21-year career at Hallmark, where I did everything from, started as a greeting card writer to designing and standing up a multicultural center of excellence, to leading business innovation, to being corporate culture advisor to the president. And in all of that, what I was very sure of is that an environment where every single person felt that they could be seen, respected, valued, and protected was key to unlocking talent contribution. And so for me, ever since then, my work has been about more deeply understanding what it means to be seen at work and what that means for different people, what it means to be respected, what it means to be valued, what it means to be protected, and how meeting those emotional need states leads to business outcomes. Of course, 2020 came, and my company, my business ended up focusing very much on the work associated with DEI. And I'm careful to always say the work associated with, because you all have probably heard me say that the moniker DEI expert is troubling for me, because we're talking about data and research, we're talking about recruiting, we're talking about social justice, we're talking about procurement, we're talking about
All the things.
systems of accountability, where I could honestly go on for about 10, 12, 15 more skill sets. That's a lot of skill sets. I don't know anybody who can do all of those things equally well. But naturally in 2020, the need was for us to kind of join into spaces with people and help them see each other and help them hear each other and show some, I'll just say, kind of basic human compassion for the variety of experiences that we were all grappling with. And so that's what the market needed at the time, right? And because I'm passionate, obviously, about equity, about inclusion, about the gift that diversity brings to businesses through the lens of kind of a broader set of ideas and more ways to look at business problems, a lot of my work ended up being that. In the last couple of years, I'll say, I began kind of going back to my roots. And those of you who know me well, and we've talked about it, you know this. The last couple of years, we started really shaping, our methodology. So developed an employee experience assessment that allows us to tell clients, here's what the different talent segments are feeling or experiencing inside your company, and here's what it means for your business outcomes, using that data to customize learning solutions, bringing kind of a systems practice lens to all of that. So that's what I've been deeply engaged in. While I've been doing that and kind of testing those hypotheses and refining the methodology, I've been feeling everything you've been feeling. I've been feeling sad. I've been feeling angry, especially because the I'll say deconstruction of so much of what we've done with a pure heart and kind of bold action over the last few years is being, deconstructed with malice. And the kind of person I am, and I know you all too, I have a really hard time with that. I told a client today, when we have to tear things apart, but we have a good reason, I can rely on the good reason, right? I can say all of this has to go bye-bye, but there's a good reason, and I can let that good reason give me some semblance of peace. There's not that good reason right now. And so all of this feels as terrible as it possibly can. And so in that, I'm focusing, on what I can do, on taking care of myself, on paving the way for a different way to show up for myself and others. I'm focusing on the fact that human beings are before systems. And if we can still make those connections, to Minda's work and Deepa's work and Ritu's work, if we can still make those one-to-one connections and take all of our exposures and experiences and shape our lens in ways that create spaces where we can all thrive and be together and make things more beautiful than they've been. That's what I'm signing up for. So leaning very heavily into creativity right now, leaning very heavily into renewal or the idea of renewal. And I've been thinking about what that means, what it means when things are consumed by fire. Sometimes it means that the space is free and open for something new to be born. And that's how I keep myself sane, quite frankly.
Mm. I'm so glad that you're leaning into your creativity because I feel like all of us who follow your work and we know about your writings and how powerful they are, we are being rewarded for the
Thank you.
creativity that's being sparked and inspired through this moment and this season. And for those of you who don't know, Tara has a rich history of working for Hallmark and of writing lots of cards maybe that you all have gifted to someone. But nonetheless, you have a beautiful way of words, and I always appreciate being able to read what Tara has to say about what's happening in the world. And so keep doing that. I want to stick with you for a second because this is a great alignment with this "you are before the world" topic and mantra that you have kind of adopted in addition to waymaking, and they intersect in so many ways. And so I just want you to talk a little bit about what is this concept about of "you are before the world." I know the story. I want the community to know the story, and I also want you to share, how do you see this being linked to your life's work and purpose, particularly as it relates to waymaking?
Well, I love, first of all, what Minda said earlier about the work she does. The game is the same, right?
Name is the
How you play
same.
it might be a little different, but the game
Yeah.
you started out playing, Minda, all those years ago is the same today. And for me, that game has been building bridges between people and ideas. That's the
Mhm.
game I've been playing for a decade. It's the game I'm still playing. And so both waymaking and being before the world are kind of connected to that. Of course, you know the story. Few of us were getting ready to meet in Florida to have some author sister time. I got there first. I ordered groceries. When I looked in my app, the name of the grocery delivery driver was Socrates. It was the day after the election. I was in a very deep, dark hole. I will not lie. He showed up. I said, "Socrates, huh?" And I kind of chuckled, and he said, "That's the name my mother gave me." And I said, "Well, I could use a little philosophy right about now." And he said, "About what exactly?" And I looked at him like he had 7 heads because I was thinking, "You don't know?" And I said, "The world." And he
The
said to
world.
me, "You are before the world." And then he put the groceries down and he walked away. And I stood in the breezeway for about 5 minutes, I kid you not, just like letting those words settle on me and kind of bringing up all of the things that meant. And so in conversation, we came up with 3 things, right? One is, you are before the world, as in, if you don't take care of you, you can't do shit for the world, excuse my French.
Absolutely.
Number 2, you are before the world, meaning you go before. Sometimes you have to pave the way. Here's the waymaker piece.
Yes.
Before other people can see clearly enough to move. And the third would be that, again, you are before the world, as in human beings, people are before systems. And that kind of 3-pronged calling, if you will, just really wouldn't let me go, which started the writing and how I wrote this new book in about 6 weeks. Because I just sat back in the chair and said, "Okay, you do this. I'm going to just be a vessel." And here we are. So you are before the world is what I need to know and remember right now. And I'm trusting it's what other people need to know and remember right now. And I think as long as we can move with that level of awareness and love for ourselves, but also for the purposes and the goals and the gifts that we've been called to give, um, I think we can make the world a better place, no matter what it looks like right now.
So by the way, we're having some lovely comments being shared into the chat that I hope you all are able to kind of soak up, even if it's now or later, because I do feel like it's going to be a way of also filling our cup from today's experience. So each of us have, in our own way, talked about the importance of community and holding space. And because that has become such a big conversation, I took a moment to pause and think about, does everyone know how to do that? do we all know what that looks like, right? And so I feel like there's a need for us to unpack that a little bit further because it probably means different things to different people. And so, Minda, I'm going to go to you on this question because I also want to relate it to your advocacy of not only just Black women, but of also younger women of color and giving them a place and a safe space to feel seen, valued, and heard. So, what does community mean to you? And how has your work helped to connect that sense of community and support to younger women of color?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Well, I often say it's like weird when you're an author and you quote your own work, but we're here, we're going to go with it. So I often say success is not a solo sport. And I've said that from the get-go, and I still strongly believe in that today, right? I wouldn't be here without people investing in me. Certain people wouldn't be able to take their next journey or find their voice or whatever with maybe not being able to read certain works of all of us here, right? Or videos or community. And so I realized that community, it doesn't have to be a physical thing always, right? It can be in the books, in the podcasts, in the Zooms, right? Community is what gets us through. And I think COVID showed me how important community is because I'm a functioning introvert. And so I'm okay not, my friends will text me and be like, I know you don't want to talk on the phone, but I really need to talk to you on the phone today. And they'll preface that. Okay. And I'm like, okay, so you need me to talk. Okay, got it. So those are things that I realize that community means different things. And part of that means that we have to show up for our people in the ways that they need to receive community as well, right? And so community can be linear. Community can mean so many different things, but community is also the text messages, the voice messages, the likes on the social media, right? And so what I love about this time in space is that we get to create the communities that we want to build. You think about, we're in Black History Month, you think about the civil rights movement. It was the communities that they were building in silos, right? In different cities that they may have never known that other people were doing it, but they had a blueprint, right? And for me, I think about my works as blueprints, as guides, right? So when I'm not in Tennessee or I'm not in Tokyo or I'm not in Grand Rapids, that you have the guide, you have the community, that I write in a way in which you feel like we are sitting together in my living room or we're taking a road trip. And so I like to create that community. And I was thinking about what Tara was saying, but now that Dr. White, you kept saying Tarjay, now I can't hear that in my head. So I have to stop myself with that. Tarjay. So, but I thought about the Sonia Sanchez quote. She says, I shall become a collector of me and put meat on my soul. And that is part of the community. We have to allow ourselves to put meat on our soul, and so that others can also put meat on their souls as well. And so I would be nothing without community. And I'm just thankful that we get to be in community in this way. You've created it through celebrating your milestone, but now you're creating community for us to be able to be here. And I think just like we were in COVID, it was unknown territories, and we would get on Zooms, we would get on LinkedIn Lives. I think that's what's going to take us into this next era of our life, that we have to just double down on community. And so when I started this work, it was, I focused on really women of color in the workplace. And I realized, wait a second, I got to go back to my 12-year-old self. She needed community too. And that's why it's so important that I wanted to embrace our holistic selves, from the teenager to our more seasoned self. So community is everything.
Yeah, that's where your More the Magic came to life and has been pouring into so many different young women all across. And I love that we're able to recognize the importance of getting the young people when they are young and impressionable, so that all these things that we're learning in our adult years, they're able to have, that learning curve shortened for them. I want to stay on this topic of community and holding space. And I think, Ritu, about all that you shared as you were talking about the importance of community. Now, you're in Canada. And so some could say, oh, you don't have to worry about all the ills of what's happening in the US. And that's not true. So tell us why that's not true. And then tell us how this has, how the sense of community has, really been heightened for you, even though you're not in the States.
Oh, such a good question or questions. I was saying to a client today, so while I am physically located in Canada, I would say the bulk of my work is in the US. Like I physically pre-pandemic would be there at like once a week and now virtually. And so I sometimes feel like an honorary American. This is a really tricky time in my personal life, professional life, because first of all, as Canadians, you were our best friends. We were besties. Okay. So we were besties, your neighbor to the north. And now we're mad at y'all. Okay. And we're mad at you because, well, there's a huge impact, like the reverberations of international and domestic policy in for powerful nations around the world like yours. It's profound. It has a profound impact, and it just underscores the interconnectedness of being. So if we want to talk about connection, I have for years been talking about how we are all connected. Like the interconnectedness of being is profound. In fact, the pandemic underscored how we literally breathe the same air. Like the air I am breathing, you all will eventually breathe in some way because we take a breath and then we get on a plane and anyhow, I think that this is a really important moment for the world on a whole. Like if you look at every region of the world, there is shift happening, even in my own country. And I know we have Canadians joining today. We are headed into a federal election very shortly. We will likely end up in a place that puts us more right of where we are. That's a pattern we're seeing globally. And so this is just a really important moment and time for those of us who care about justice, who care about the interconnectedness of being, who care about future generations inheriting an earth, a planet that is filled with love and equity and health and wellness for all beings everywhere. It's so important that we loudly use our voices and our actions to call out and cry out for connection. And in fact, like we've all, as you're all joining, you can see why we're friends, because we all are so interconnected in the way we're thinking. Like in moments like this, sometimes we think, okay, like, let me give up hope. I'm going to take my ball home and I'm not going to play anymore. And I get that because I've had that feeling repeatedly, let me tell you, over the last while. And then I say to myself, kind of like what you're saying, Minda, it's like, I'll just play the game differently. So that may have meant that back in 2020, I was all over social media and I was saying this and saying that. Here I am 5 years later, really tired, burnt out, grieving my mama and grieving the world. And so now how I play the game looks different, but I'm still using my voice and my actions. I am still showing up. Why? Because I recognize the importance of connection. And I mentioned earlier, I'm trying to explore a new relationship with work and rest. And I'm like, how can I do this? How can I emphasize the importance of connection and make the world a better place? Because my drop in the ocean matters. It does, because every drop matters, but in a way that honors myself as well. And so I think if you said, Ritu Bhasin, the world could look like the way you want it to, I would say we would be borderless. And frankly, this is a moment that underscores in some ways we are borderless, because what happens in your nation impacts my nation. What happens in my nation will impact your nation and other nations as well. And so I think it's really important we start viewing our actions through everyone on this planet is impacted by what I do and what I say.
Yeah. I mean, one word comes to mind: humanity, period.
Yes.
Humanity, period. I love the fact that you have been connecting empowerment of self to our ability to connect with community, with the right community, right? The ones where we feel safe, we feel supported, we feel loved. And I think that's really critical. Deepa, the first, the few, the only. I think about the important work that you've done and that you continue to advocate for. And then I also think about the ways in which so many individuals who are devaluing gender parity and inclusion and belonging, that they are determined in many ways to try to undo a lot of the great work that yourself and others have done and continue to do. And so when you think about some of the current trends that you're seeing in the midst of this current climate, what comes up for you, and what should our listeners who are joined with us know about maybe the progress that is not going at a cadence that we once were hopeful that it was going to go? How are you keeping yourself and others that are really committed to your work and your advocacy positive about change that will come? And I'm saying that with great level of positivity, that will come, will come.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I feel like I've started with this. I think it's hard. I mean, I think that there may have been some denial that what we see happening now would not necessarily affect gender. I think there were, you know, to be really direct, I think there were a lot of white women who did not necessarily see what we're seeing play out. And so I think the conversations, unfortunately, anything that's in place can be undone is really the feeling and the sentiment. And although I see my clients and companies really holding strong to everyone's included and everyone belongs, in the day-to-day, I think we still have to understand what that means, and just kind of looking at, you know, Minda, I think you shared these are your two, you know, biggest speaking months, mine as well. I mean, for Women's History Month, I had 3 calls this morning. You know, these are the things that we know we can talk about. We don't know what's going to change before in the next week and what we're going to say. So it's a very fluid situation. And I just think that we, you know, talking about race at work is, you know, definitely one piece of it, but I think that we've just underestimated the impact on gender. And we're just beginning to, I think, take a beat and really see how widespread the impacts will be. And I think a lot of companies weren't necessarily thinking it would go there. You know, I sit on a few boards where even in the academic space, we're focused on gender parity research in women's health. I mean, the impacts it touches everything. And I think that's what people just underestimated and didn't see. And it comes back to what we just answered in the previous question. You know, so much of my work is really focused on, I call it the me and the we, that you need both parts of that equation if we're going to make change.
Right.
And so much, sometimes work focuses on just let's fix the woman, or let's fix, you know, the me part of the equation. But in this situation, we need to really talk about doing both, and how we actually make it through this time is really in conversation and really talking about how we make change together. And I think it's really hard. You know, I was in a conversation this weekend that was more personal, and I was trying to explain to the person that I think what's happening is where we draw our circle is really different amongst people. So I think the 5 of us share where we draw a circle. And what I mean by that is I think some people worry about themselves. You know, like what matters at work, the policies that matter are my circle is myself. Some people maybe include their family, right? You know, the people in my household, maybe my extended family. Some people may see their community, right? In LA, you know, Minda, we saw our community really rally after the fires. Some people may see their state. I think some people may see their country, but I think there's less of us that actually see the world as, you know, us before the world, as all of us, as our circle. And I think that's what we're really seeing play out. So for me, this is a little bit of that conversation, the underestimation of where this could go as you start to unravel topics like DE&I, but also just where are we responsible? Where does our circle lie? And how do we start to think about that differently? Because I think we have lied to ourselves, and that everyone, you know, wanted to believe the circle was the same for all of us, but I don't think it's the same. And that's what we're seeing really play itself out in these conversations.
That is really good insight, and I certainly agree. So I was at a conference recently, and it was a conference of CHROs, CDOs, people that are directly connected to the space or adjacent to it. And of course, we were talking about what's going on in our country right now in the political landscape. And the question came up, how did we get here in the first place? There were so many different perspectives. It was just interesting to see the room flow and dialogue around how did we get here. And I'm just interested to hear some of your perspectives. Anyone care to just chime in on what you believe, or maybe some of the reasons that we are where we are right now? How did we get here? I saw you come off mute first, so I'm like, okay, Tara J, go with it.
Well, I'm gonna try really hard not to be the weirdo. I think that the simple answer, or kind of high level, is, you know, when you hear people talking about the browning of America, and of course, you know, the last vestiges of white superiority and the fear that kind of has risen with all of that, and people basically feeling like we're not going for that. We're going to take all of our power and our advantages and our benefits back. And so we're going to use these certain things as weapons to try to kind of cut down whatever progress has been made so that we have fewer headwinds, etc. So yes, I think all of that is happening, but I will be honest. I also feel like race and gender are like Trojan horses. I don't really feel like they are the point.
Mm,
I feel like greed and power are the point. And
yes.
people know that race is a flashpoint issue. They know it is an emotional issue. They know gender is an emotional issue. They know civil rights is an emotional issue. So being
Mhm.
able to kind of sit back and scan the environment and say, how can we leverage these emotional flashpoints for our strategic purposes, I believe is what we're seeing unfold right now. And so while we're on the small stage, fussing and fighting about, right, those things, there are people on the big stage fussing and fighting about completely different things. And so to me, like, it's just a lot more complicated
Mm,
when I think about how we got here. Because I think the end game is a domination in a way, you know, which is a hard thing to pull the thread from. Like,
yeah.
Can I
so.
piggyback on something Tara just said?
Yes.
I have been thinking about this a lot, like
Mhm.
nonstop, because as a Canadian who works in the US and just watching, and I'm just like, I'm going to keep it short because I'm mindful of time. I just want to say that capitalism is literally destroying our planet. For me, it is the fundamental root problem that connects with power and greed, and
Yeah.
the mistaken belief in scarcity. And that mistaken belief in scarcity comes from a disconnection from Mother Earth, because there is abundance on our earth and there's abundance in the universe, but we have bought into the false belief of scarcity. And that is what propels capitalism. And so that is all I'll say today, but I will share more if you're interested online.
Well, I'm gonna get
As I
each of you
rest,
like,
I rest.
I'll chime in for just a sprinkle of
please go for it.
Laurie's
Yes.
seasoning salt in here. I agree with what everyone has said, but what I will say is going back to what Deepa said about the circles. I think, how did we get here? We are already here, but because we
Yes.
were, like Tara said, on the other stage, right? We've always been here.
Yes.
Right. And because we had a
Right.
little more power and a little more access, we forgot about the other stage. Right. And
Yes.
now it was a shocker to the other half of us that this Sims game was going on this other stage that we weren't even part of the conversation
So
at. So I
good.
think it's the jarring, I think it's very jarring for us because we're like, wait, what the hell? What was going on at this other festival, right? The fire festival, what's happening over there? And we had like no idea, right? And so
Like,
I
when
think,
did they have time to do
right,
that?
when did have time? And I think we were so, optimistic and kind of in our like kumbaya moment that we were, up here and they were already pulling things together. And I think this gives us an opportunity to get back in the Trojan horse, right? And then attack where we need to. And so I'm very optimistic about the future because now we know what the table set. Now we know what fork to use, what wine glass to use. Before we weren't sure what was going on. And so for me, like, it's go time. Now I understand why you chose your circle. I thought we were at the same party. Now I know we're not. So
That's right.
now, so for me, we already were here. I think now we're all at the same party now,
Yeah, we got our etiquette lesson. Now let's go. What are we going to do next? Okay, so Deepa, I want to get you in here because the other three have been able to chime in on this question of how did we get here? How would you answer that question? What are your thoughts to that question?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's power, right? A lot of what I study is power. And so I do think it's power. I think it's scarcity. And I also think it's a feeling of it's a last dance, right? I do think that
Yeah.
people who historically had power felt like things were shifting. And that's very uncomfortable. And we are not having different conversations. You know, I thought I was going to write a book on fairy tales. And so I did a lot of research on stories and the things we tell. We've been telling the same stories for generations, for hundreds of years. And if the stories and the values and the things that we care about aren't updated, meaning, right, competition, scarcity, you know, the sense of like, you know, winner take all, if we don't change those stories, those narratives, we don't teach the next generation there's a different way to live. So to me, it's what everyone has said, but part of what also has to change is the stories that we tell and the values that we hold, the circles that we draw. And also the fact that there's more of us in the circles together, and we haven't always come together. And I think that's part of what we have to do next too.
I agree. So much connective tissue to all that's been shared today. I just want to thank you all for joining me. I consider you all not only friends, but sisters in the work, and then sisters just in life for that support and that community. And so I just can't express my appreciation to each of you for being here, being a light, and just continuing to show up the way that you do so beautifully. I think that is the reason that so many of us that may follow, you know, each of our work is able to kind of maintain some sense of hope, right, during these moments. And so don't stop what you're doing. Thank you to the community that has joined us today. Thank you for celebrating our 5th year anniversary. We will do this again next quarter, so stay tuned for more information. And we just hope to see you all again. And these LinkedIn streets, these wherever we find ourselves, right? Just continue to keep following and supporting. Thank you all so very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you, dear Nika. Thank you, sisters. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.